It was only a few years ago that I was living paycheck to paycheck at a job that I hated, failing a business and dealing with overdraft fees and loans that I did not know why I had or where I was paying for them from, to now, by the grace of God, making over $100,000 a month in profit. Okay. And let me ask you a question is what if the thing that feels like it has been breaking you is actually the thing that God has been using to build you? Well, that's not just my story. That is the practical, predictable pattern of preparation that God has for every single person. And I'm going to prove that to you because in today's video, I want to show you the 4 ways that God prepared not only myself to be able to be where I'm at now, making over $100,000 every single month as a God-made millionaire, but also the 4 patterns and the ways that God prepares you and people all throughout scripture and life for abundance in every single good work that he has for them to do. And this is the exact pattern that I lived. And I'm going to show you how you can spot where you're at right now and the pitfalls that you will fall into if you don't watch this video to the end. So make sure that you do, because these pitfalls are things that could be keeping you stuck right now in a perpetual stage where you feel like you aren't moving forward and seeing any results in your life. And this is going to explain why. So the first thing you got to understand before we get into it is how God builds muscle, spiritual muscle, that is. So before we dive into these 4 steps, you have to understand how growth actually works. You see, in the gym, there is a principle called progressive overload. And for those of you who aren't, lifting, RPs and all that, let me break it down because it is so crazy how God shows us all around through biology and all these other things that are correlating to him and the way he sets up his kingdom, right? So this is the thing about building muscle is you can't build muscle by lifting the same 10-pound weights forever. Okay. Muscle growth happens when you 1, stress the muscle beyond its current capacity. 2, allow it to break down. You heard me right. Break down through that challenge. 3, then you have to let it recover and rebuild stronger than before. And then 4, you increase the weight and then you repeat the process. And so this is what's fascinating because this is exactly how God grew me and how he's growing you. And you can probably look back in your life if you've been saved more than a couple of months and see this process has already happened, hopefully multiple times in your life, if you are actually growing. You see, he doesn't just keep us comfortable. He progressively increases the weight of our assignments. So think about how plants grow. A healthy tree doesn't just stay the same shape its whole life. One of my favorite things when I garden is that the new sprout has these 2 leaves that come out. And do you know that those 2 leaves are not its real leaves? Do you know that those 2 leaves that it starts out with will be 2 of the first things to shed off of it when it grows into its next phase? You see, it sheds old leaves. You see, plants get pruned by the gardener for their health to allow them to grow. You see, it stretches towards new light. And the very things that look like setbacks, the pruning, the shedding, the storms that bend it are actually what make it stronger and more fruitful. You see, God uses the same principle with us. The challenges that feel like they are breaking you down are building you up. The pressure that feels overwhelming is creating strength that you will need for your next assignment. And the pruning seasons, when you lose things that you thought you needed, that you could never live without, are making room for something better to grow. So when I talk about God's preparation process, remember, it's not about punishing you with hard things, but developing you through them. So what is this 4-step pattern then? Okay, I'm not going to keep you in suspense any longer. The first step is current faithful stewardship. Okay, so God always starts where you currently are. He always starts with the seed, okay? He asks, what did I give you? In a different video, I'll talk about that. There are multiple examples in scripture where God starts with, what do you have that I already gave you, okay? So the first way that God prepared me to now hold millions of dollars by the grace of God, which is crazy to say coming from someone who did not grow up in financial abundance, whose parents never made more than $40,000 in a single year, to now managing where we have days where we make more than that. And so the way that God prepared me was through faithful stewardship in the small things. Every biblical hero started the same way as well. You see, Moses, 40 years shepherding sheep in the wilderness. David faithfully tending to his father's flocks. Joseph managing family responsibilities as a son. Peter running a successful fishing business. Even Jesus did carpentry before he did what he did at the cross, right? And so God wasn't wasting Peter's time having him fishing. He wasn't wasting Joseph's time having him help and learn those things with his father. He wasn't wasting your time with the season that you're in right now. You have to recognize where God has you. Those sheep that David protected, that taught him how to lay down his life for others. Moses leading animals through the wilderness, that was perfect training for leading people through the wilderness. You see, God wasn't wasting your time. He was building their foundation. And that's the same thing that he's doing right now with you and me. You see, before I got to the point where I was managing millions, I was managing next to nothing, okay? Before I had to make a decision about what to do with $300,000, God was asking me, what are you going to do with the $3? You see, so many times, depending on your our financial, and I know, because what did Paul say? I've been a base and I've been abound. I've been rich and I've been poor. I know what it's like in all of those seasons. And I know that sometimes it feels like the less money you have, the less the money matters. But let me tell you this, the more it matters. Because what you do with little, and the Bible says this, he who is faithful with little is who God entrusts with more. And so some of us, we come to God and we ask God for a promotion. And he's looking like, you haven't been faithful with what I have given you. You're saying, well, Lord, if you give me a big garden, then I will steward it well. But the Lord is saying, I gave you a seed and you keep eating it. I gave you a seed, but then you go put it in the ground and water it for 2 days. And then if it doesn't produce anything, you picking it up, taking it out of the ground and going to plant it somewhere else and plant it somewhere else. Why would I trust you with an entire garden when you have proven to me that you can't be faithful with the seed? You see, when you have very little, it is easy to think that it doesn't matter. If it's just $3, you know what? I only got $30 left in my account anyway. I might as well go ahead and eat out because that $30 ain't gonna change the difference between if I can pay my bill or if I can't. And that is the exact type of thinking that is going to keep you being perpetually in that situation. Because $30, maybe that's not going to change your life in and of itself, but maybe you start a furniture flipping business and that $30 gets you your first piece and it gets you some paint, a partial paint bucket that you can buy from somebody who painted their walls and ain't going to use it no more. And maybe you flip that $30 into $100 and now you have $100. But you see, you have to want to do that. You have to be in the mindset of, Lord, how can I be faithful where I am? And let me lean into you, talk to you real quick. If you are at a 9-to-5 right now and you want to start a business, are you faithful at your job? And Christians, I really want us to gather around on this because we should be the most faithful people on the planet. We should be getting promotions more than anybody else because we are working as unto the Lord. And so don't tell me about your boss. Don't tell me about your coworkers. Tell me about your God, because that is who you should be working to faithfully. At almost every job I have ever worked before I started business, I got offered a promotion. And if I wasn't promoted, it was because I declined the promotion for specific purposes because I knew that that was going to take my focus away from what God truly had for me, which was business and entrepreneurship. But the fact that I was being offered the promotions was a great sign that the people around me could see that I was working faithfully and stewarding it where I was. And so this is what I learned, is that God never promotes people past their character, but he always promotes people who prove faithful in small things. So the question isn't whether your current situation right now is impressive enough. The question is whether you're being faithful with what is in your hands right now. Okay. So now the second step is called strategic stretching. All right. So this is when God introduces new challenges that require new levels of dependence on him. This is that, you're lifting the weights and you move up. You're moving from 10 pounds to 15 pounds. It's time to add that new stress once those 10 pounds got easy. All right. So this is when challenges are just beyond your current ability and force you to depend on God and to develop specific skills. Now, this is important because some people in different camps can go wrong with both of these, okay? You need both, all right? So that next level, that stretching is going to require the spiritual element of a new level of dependence, a new level of faith, trusting God in ways that you never have had to before because you're doing things you've never done before. And in the same way and at the same time, they're also going to be practical. And this is where some other Christians mess up, is they go all spiritual, but think that because you trust God, that means you're going to get a promotion at your job. No, you also need to know how to do your job well, right? Jesus didn't just trust that the father was going to impute, carpentry knowledge into his head, he still learned the trade, right? Paul still knew how to make tents. And so they learned the practical skills that it took to actually perform the job. So with that, you are trusting God and developing the skills that are needed, right? So when we look at that pattern, let's go to Moses, right? So he went from the burning bush to confronting Pharaoh to managing the plagues to parting the Red Sea. We look at David, he went from lion, then he went to bear, then he went to Goliath, and then navigating Saul's court. Gideon went from destroying Baal's altar to reducing his army from 3,200 or 32,000 to 300. And Esther went from concealing her identity to approaching a king uninvited to orchestrating political strategy. And mind you, this is what's amazing about the Bible. It's just the highlight reel. Do you know how many of, I'm sure, their most formational growth moments were not recorded in the pages of scripture? They were in the day in and day out. And you see, we think that life is like a movie where we get to do a fun training montage and then wake up and go defeat the bad guy, go win the big promotion, go have the successful business. But life is mostly that training montage. Most of life is the journey, not the mountaintops. And so number one, enjoy the journey, enjoy the process of building skills. And that's why you can't do it for money's sake, because if you do that, you're going to be miserable. But if you're actually working within your gifting, within your calling, within the things that the Lord has called you to do, then moving up and stretching your skills comes so naturally because you're like, I want to get better at this. I'm interested in this. I want to do this. And so it's work, but it also is enjoyable too. And you see, one thing you have to think about is these challenges and these business failures, like for instance, that I had, every time that I failed, I had 7 failed businesses before I got to the business that I'm at right now. And again, everybody sees the highlight reel. You see when I talk about how like the first month that I started doing what I'm doing now, I was able to make, I don't lie, maybe 30,000. It was 30 to 60,000 the first month. And then definitely by 60,000 the second month. And then now I have been working for myself for, 3 years, I believe it is now, that we've been making consistently over $100,000 a month in this last, I don't want to give a specific timeline because it could be wrong, but year or so, I want to say. And the one thing that happened though, throughout all those behind the scenes failures that nobody ever saw, was the Lord was teaching me particular things through those things. There was one time where I remember the first course that I ever created. And if you're interested in learning how to do that, how to monetize your skills, which is what I've been able to make money doing, I have a free training in the description that goes over the 3 steps that you can use to monetize your own skills, talents, and interests by teaching them to other people. So for those who are interested, because I know somebody's going to ask, that's there. But you see, when I created my first course, I made a huge mistake. I thought, well, you know what? I hate all of that emotional fluff. I'm just going to put the product out there. I'm going to say what's in it. I'm going to say how much it costs. And then that's it, And so that's what I did. And you know how many people bought it? None. Nobody bought it. You know why? Because what I didn't understand is that that's not how people buy things. That's not why people buy things. And then I had to do a lot of research and learn about marketing, learn about presentation, and learn about mindset and belief building and all of this stuff. And that failure specifically sharpened that skill, And so each challenge forces you to forge and develop both faith and competence. And that's what we want in this 5th stage, where the Lord is developing faith in you and he's developing competence in you. And so you have to notice with Moses and David and Gideon and Esther, like these aren't random hardships, right? Each challenge developed the exact skills that they would need later. David's precision with a slingshot under pressure, that became precision with leadership under pressure. Moses learning to speak to Pharaoh, that prepared him to speak boldly to 2 million complaining Israelites. You see, God's challenges are never arbitrary. They are always strategically designed to build what you will need next. Okay, so step 3 is incremental capacity building. So this is that each successfully navigated challenge increases both your faith and your competency. So the third way that God prepared me was through that, right? So this is where most people miss it. They jump straight to, or want to jump straight to the big assignment without building the capacity to actually handle it. And a lot of people that I talk to that are praying for financial abundance or for breakthrough, and I'm like, breakthrough will break you. Okay, breakthrough will break you. And there is a reason why God hasn't given it to you. And it's because he knows it would crush you. And in his kindness, he is too kind to do that, right? And so you have to build the capacity to handle it. And so a lot of people are praying for things that right now, like imagine a little sprout trying to hold 50 apples. It would just be drooping over inside and it would be crushed under the weight of that. But you've got to build deep enough roots. Have you ever seen a picture of a tree? Generally, they say that the root system of a tree is over 2 times the size of the crown of the tree. So the glory that you see in that crown that maybe is this big on top of what you get to see has a root system underneath that is twice that size, because that is how it is prevented from toppling over. Because you see, if that tree had all that fruit, but it had shallow roots, then it would be uprooted and it will fall. And God is too gracious to give you that fruit without making sure you have the root system to be able to handle that capacity first. Okay. So let's look at Joseph's progression. This is a perfect example of how God progressively does this in step 3, that incremental capacity building. He started, of course, in his father's house, learning with his father, right? And then he moved to Potiphar's house and was managing that wealthy household. And then when he was in prison, he got promoted in the prison and he was organizing inmates and he gained the warden's trust. And then he was interpreting dreams with fellow prisoners, and then Pharaoh. And then he became the prime minister, managing the entire Egyptian economy during the global famine. So you see, it didn't happen all at once. And nobody's story does. So don't think that just because you are in this phase where you are building, the Lord is building your faith and your capacity, that it means you're failing. If you are growing, you are not failing, okay? So what I discovered is that each level of faithful stewardship unlocks the next level of assignment. And that God doesn't give you that big assignment until you've built the capacity to handle it without destroying you. And we have a perfect framework for this with our own education system. It's just like in school. You don't get the final exam. You don't get the big mid-quarter, mid-semester test until you have done things throughout the unit. You had smaller homework assignments. You had essays along the way. You had presentations to make. You had all of these things, these classwork assignments, all of these exercises to build your capacity. You see, God isn't trying to trick you. He is trying to prepare you. And so the Lord is building that capacity so that once you are there, you will be equipped to be able to, with faith and that competency, be able to pass the test. So if the Israelites went straight from Egypt to the promised land, then that's what they wanted. But God knew that they needed that capacity building in the wilderness, and their disobedience and their complaining showed it. Their fear showed it, that they weren't ready for what God had for them. You see, they weren't ready for the battles that they would face in Canaan, and the wilderness prepared them for what God needed to teach them and show them in order for them to access the promised land. All right. And then step 4 is graduated responsibility. This is when assignments grow in scope and impact as character is proven. And this is the 4th way that God prepares, is that when everything comes together, all the preparation pays off in that ultimate deployment. Generally, you will be able to see these and these are the big milestone moments in life where all of that work kind of culminates into, and you can see in so many ways how the skills from things that seemed random, that seemed unfathomable, that seemed ununderstandable at the time, that seemed just like pointless or like a distraction or a waste. And you will see that it was all for something, that none of it was for nothing, that every single place God had you to go, that there was something for you to learn there, some way for you to grow there, And so David moves from protecting sheep to protecting a nation. Esther moves from what she was doing before and the beauty pageantry to saving an entire people group. Daniel moved from a student to an advisor to multiple empires. And Peter moved from catching fish to becoming a fisher of men. You see, the current success that God has been able to bring me to is a culmination of, I can't even tell you how much. I can't even tell you how lessons that I learned being a car hop at Sonic still ring true today. My time working claims at Progressive, literally it's things that ring true to me today that I learned from those moments. And I hated that job and I did to the best of my ability, but oh my gosh, I dreaded going into work every morning. And yet the Lord had me there for a reason. And it's not just selfish either, man. Sometimes it's not about you. There were so many opportunities that the Lord gave me to minister to people and to share the gospel, lives that were touched, that were potentially transformed, that I will never know about. And That's the thing. And the Lord is still growing you through all of that. And when I put all of it together and I think about so many nights I cried. And maybe you're in that season right now where you're in that growing and you're like, nothing is working. And I feel like I'm doing it. I feel like I'm trying and I feel like I'm putting my best forward. I'm throwing everything out there. And it's just not ready yet. And that doesn't mean you never will be. But if you are feeling like you are on a point where you have pressure and like things are like bearing it down on you, then you are at an inflection point where that is the muscle breaking so that it can build back stronger. And so don't let it overtake you, you know? And so here is the loop that will happen. All right. So, and well, then this is the truth. Let's go back a little bit. So this is the truth, okay? Is that when you are in step 4, you have to understand that God's preparation doesn't feel like preparation in the moment, okay? It can feel like, and it just feels like real life with real problems. But when you're in step 4, you're able to look back and you can see how perfectly orchestrated all of it was, how God never failed, how he never left, and how every single step was directed, because the heart of a man plans his ways, but the Lord directs his steps. And so you can remember that this level is preparation for the next one that God has for you. Now, this is what you got to understand about this process is it is a loop. This process and pattern repeats at every level. If you ever played a video game, there's this concept that they intentionally designed in the game called looping, which is where you do some stuff, you achieve a level upgrade, and you do a more advanced version of that stuff, and then you achieve the next upgrade, and life is just so similar to it. And once you see the pattern, you can stop feeling like you're being personally attacked all the time and start recognizing it for what it is, okay? And so this is that process. It's not linear. You don't do the process once. It is a cycle, all right? And even at 100K a month, I am still in this pattern. Right now, I am in this position where by the grace of God, we have a flourishing YouTube channel that we are stewarding. We have an email list and a private podcast. And if you're interested in that, that'll be in the description too, where I have a private podcast where I break down what it's truly like to be a Christian who has wealth and the stuff that I will not say on YouTube because it gets really real on the Queen Sale podcast. And where we have like a lot of stuff off of line too, right? We have our family, we have our church, we have all these responsibilities and obligations that we are still needing to be faithful where we are right now. And yet and still, the Lord is preparing us to go somewhere else. You're not done until you're dead. So if you are alive, then it means that you're not done. And it is just amazing to me what God is even doing right now in my own life and how something that I thought was my final destination, that I thought was a mountaintop, actually turned out to be a launching pad. And once we get okay with the fact that we weren't designed for stagnation, that we don't resent the growth, but we expect it, we can have a lot more peace. And so I'm still in that right now. I'm in a current faithfulness stage right now. And then in a strategic stretching, we're building toward, and then you move into the incremental capacity building, where now I'm getting new skills and new faith for a new assignment, and then graduated responsibility as I prove faithful. So let me ask you this. How are you currently experiencing this? You know, what is God asking you to faithfully steward right now? What new challenges are being unlocked? And so whether you're believing for your first $1,000, $10,000, or your first $1 million year, the pattern remains the same. And you don't get to one without first getting to the other. The thing is that God is looking for people who will be faithful with what is in their hands today, so you can trust them with what he wants to put in their hands tomorrow. So where are you in this pattern right now? I'm going to go through how you can know where you're at, some things to be mindful of, and I want you to comment 1, 2, 3, or 4, depending on what stage you are in. So if you are in step 1, I want you to remember this. This is the faithful stewardship step, okay? And I want you to remember never to despise small beginnings. So if you feel like you are so far away from where you want to be and you don't see the point of what you're doing or where you're at right now, know that it is preparation. And what if instead of taking it like punishment, you took it like a job interview? What if you knew that God would determine whether or not you're going to get where you want to go based on your performance review for where you're at right now? How would that change the way that you show up? How would that change the way that you interact, the way that you carry yourself? Implement that. You see, you have to excel in your current responsibilities, even if they seem unrelated to your dreams. And you have to ask God this question. How can I be more faithful with what you've already given me? So drop a 1 if that is where you're at. Now, if you're in step 2, this is the strategic stretching. And I want you to remember, do not run from the challenge. Lean into it. If you see that this is an opportunity for you to grow, I want you to get excited. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm in step 2. I love it. Okay. So this stretching is building exactly what you'll need later. And ask God, okay, Lord, I feel the stretching. I feel the pressure. I'm picking up the weight. I feel my muscles tensing up. I'm getting a little sore. Ask God, what are you trying to develop in me through this? And when you start to see it through a new lens, it feels less painful because you know what's going on and you know, okay, this is not for nothing, right? Now, comment 2 if you are in that strategic stretching phase. Now, step 3 is in the capacity building stage. Now, if you are in this stage, I want you to celebrate the levels of growth. This means you've moved up a couple of levels, but you don't feel like you're at that level up yet, right? And so in this, I want you to remember that you can celebrate the answered prayers along the way. You don't have to wait until you're at the mountaintop to celebrate that you are no longer at the bottom, and trust the process and understand that sometimes this process is longer than we expect. For some people, this step 3 of capacity building is a couple of months before they get to their graduated. For some people, it is multiple years. And that's in fact the more common pattern that we see in scripture is the Lord preparing people for years before they're at that graduated responsibility phase for whatever season they're in with their assignment. And so trust God's timing and see that if you are building that skill, that if you are building that faith and the Lord is building those things in you, that it is not without purpose. And again, that this season matters, and celebrate it, right? And so you can ask God, how is this building my capacity for what is coming? And then if you're in step 4, that graduated responsibility phase where you are at the mountaintop, you achieve this thing that you've been working towards for a long time. Steward well what you have been given. Make sure you stay humble and teachable and be on guard from pride and turning around and saying that you did it yourself and not giving glory to the Lord. And always ask, okay, God, thank you, right? Gratitude. And then how can I use this for your glory and others' good? And then go ahead and prepare to get right back to step 1 of faithful stewardship and where you're at right now. So comment where you're at, 1, 2, 3, or 4. So here's what I learned overall about the process is that God doesn't just develop you for the sake of development, is that he is preparing you to serve others with what he's built in you. For me, he took everything he developed in me, the skills, the experiences, the mindset shifts, the lessons learned through failures and success, and showed me how to package that into courses that serve other people, that teach them the transformations that God had brought me through. And I started that with a resume and interview skills course that got me to my first $20,000 month. And after people started asking, hey, how are you doing it? How are you packaging that? The Lord brought me to being able to create an entire business around helping other people just like you, kingdom-minded entrepreneurs who want to leave their 9-to-5s, who want to have access to more financial freedom to be able to give more, to take care of their family, more time freedom to be able to have an open schedule, not be on sales calls or clock into anybody's 9-to-5, and location freedom to be able to travel, to be able to see the beauty that God has created in this world, experience other cultures and places and missionary things, and just like all of these different things that you can't do because you are locked down. And so if that is where God is taking you and you feel like you want to explore what that might look like, again, I have a training that shows you exactly how I went from employee at a 9-to-5 that I hated to now making over $100,000 a month through creating courses. And it is called Learn the 3 Simple Steps to Create a Course, Quit Your Job, and Come Home. And yes, this can work for you even if you don't feel like you're an expert or if you're starting as a complete beginner with no knowledge of what any of this is at all. So the link is in the description below, and I will walk you through the exact system that God has used to transform my life and the thousands of students that I have been able to bless and serve. So just remember that God's preparation process is trustworthy. He's not wasting your time, your talents, or your trials, and he's building something beautiful, and every piece serves a purpose, okay? So if you're watching this and you feel overwhelmed by where you are right now, I want you to know something. It has a purpose. The job you feel stuck in, the financial pressure you're facing, the skill that you were having to develop that's taken a lot of trial and error, it's not punishment. It's preparation. And one thing I might add, if you're in that capacity building phase where the Lord is building your skills, The Bible says that a person with a council of advisors is wise, okay? And so I encourage you to not take any pride in doing things the hard way for the sake of the hard way. If you have a specific route that you're trying to go down, coaching, courses, skills, whatever you can do to further that, to get systematic education regarding that process. If you see someone and they have the life that you want, they're doing the thing that you want to be doing, and you have the opportunity to learn from them, it is wise to make that investment. That is sowing a good seed that you can expect fruit on. Okay. And for that, you say, oh, what if it's on? What if I waste money? I don't believe that anything is ever a waste. Of course, do your due diligence, but if you have that mindset, that means you're probably walking around with a closed hand. And there probably will be something that you can learn from that thing, if nothing else. And if nothing else, you're going to learn something about the process, and that's going to teach you something too. So no matter how it turns out, you know that you will be able to learn something. So please, I find that so many Christians are so fearful of investing in building your skills when that is the number one asset that you can use and keep forever. Okay. So remember that God sees your faithfulness in the small things. He's watching how you handle the stretching. He's building your capacity even when you can't see it. And he has assignments waiting for you that will require everything that he's developing in you right now. And so if right now seems pointless, I want you to remember and remind yourself that everything that is happening right now will be on the test. Okay. You know, when you're in the class and the teachers say, all right, this down because this is going to be on the test. That is how everything in life works with God. Everything that he is having you go through is going to be on the test. So I hope you're paying attention. I hope you're studying. I hope you're taking it seriously. All right. So your breakthrough, it's not being delayed. It is being prepared. And so trust the process. Stay faithful, because God will deploy everything that he has been building in you in the right time. So if this encouraged you, please hit the like button and subscribe if you want more content on faith and entrepreneurship and biblical wealth. And let me know in the comments, what stage are you in and what is God preparing you for right now? Now, if you are ready to go to the next level, you see, most believers end up getting stalled at one of these stages and get stuck in the wilderness of good enough. And I'm talking to you if you know that you have built a home somewhere that was supposed to be a bridge. And this is exactly why God made me leave my 6-figure job. And I'm going to explain and tell all in the next video. So if you are wanting to see that, it's called Why God Led Me to Leave My 6-Figure Job, and I'm about to spill the beans. So I'll see you there.